Good evening and welcome to tonight's 12th Dimension. I'm joined by Barry Fitzgerald and Steve Mera. Good evening.
Good evening.
Right, so I'll start with the first question. I already mentioned it to Barry before we went live. How did you two guys meet?
I
remember.
Remember, it was the hotel. It was the hotel from hell that you were staying in.
That's the one.
And Steve ended up getting booked into a hotel room, and Steve's a big man. I got to say, like he towers above me, and he was the hotelier tried to cram him into the attic space. With a bed that was around 3 feet shorter than him. So I thought we were going to have to saw his legs off to get him into bed.
Yeah. The whole room was lit up 24/7 by an emergency light. And you couldn't turn it off. So it was like sleeping with a light on. And there was a wall either end of the bed. And it was about 3.5 foot long. And so you couldn't stretch your leg out at the wall. And it was, it was an experience.
It was different.
Oh my God! Yeah. How we laughed that weekend! Oh my God!
Oh, we did laugh.
Cool. Right. So, have you guys got any projects that you're doing together at the moment, or anything separate?
We're
new on the agenda.
Always working on new things. It never seems to end, does it? Really, Barry? To be honest,
no.
Though that we do have the long-running Project Doorway, which we've both been involved in, working on now for about 5 years, and of course it's gone off into other tangents and other areas. Different types of research keeps coming up. Though that we've done a
cool
research in sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah, still here.
Yeah, so we've done a few different things, some research into the paranormal field, especially those involving or surrounding the skull experiments and things of similar nature. High strangeness, we've done quite a bit of research and stuff into projects of high strangeness in all areas around the world. Myself and Barry were involved in a very prominent case, which was the mysterious three-fingered mummy from Peru.
Yeah.
And so we were over there doing that on an official basis. Yeah. And of course we're also writing a book together at the moment as well. So there's so many different things which are on the go, to be honest.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Do you want to jump straight in with the questions?
I'm fine. I'm easy too. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, question for Barry and Steve. Project Doorway has given us the answers. I need a majestic 12. Sorry, I don't understand that question. Moving on.
Told you it was going to be a good one.
You weren't kidding. Question for Barry and Steve. Project Doorway has given us the answers. I need a majestic 12. Barry, Steve, make 2. I need 10 more. 5 each, guys.
Yeah, and the thing about Project Doorway is that it's always evolving.
It is.
Yeah.
So even though at the beginning, we put things in place, and there's quite a few things that we say, okay, these are things, the baselines that you need to acknowledge. But even the work from that, as Steve says, it's an ongoing process, and now we're delving into areas that we never really thought that we would even be entering into. And it's taking us into areas that we're having to re-educate ourselves in certain aspects of modern science, to understand the phenomena and how it's being utilized within those areas, so that we can bring this information forward within updated processes within Project Doorways. But in regards to whoever that was, asking for a majestic 12, yeah, me and Steve's in. Yeah, we'll do that.
Oh, absolutely. There was, I can say, maybe about 6 or 7 months back now, we started compiling some of the basic papers that we do. As you're gathering research, you've got to get it down, because there's so much and it gets all mixed up into areas. So we get it down, and we've got a few down. I've got one into a scientific paper, the first one that was compiled, and I sent it just out of curiosity to what I would say is one of the hierarchy in the UFO UAP studies, which is the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies in America. Quite a lot of high noted people are part of that organization. Jacques Vallée, Professor Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, and I sent the very first paper over for them to have a look at. The guy that runs SCU got back to me a few days later and was very intrigued about the work myself and Barry put together. Well, it was only a start, to be honest. I mean, it was very little bit of information that we sent. And he asked if I would join the SCU as a member. Right. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I thought, why would that suddenly come about? And he said to me that it was overlooked. Barry's and my bits and bobs of stuff we wrote down was overlooked by Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis with the raised eyebrow. And I was also told, I found out since, that they've been looking into the same things we've been pretty much looking into as well. Maybe some areas not as advanced as we have, myself and Barry, but other areas, yes. And I think that was maybe a reason why I kind of got the invite to SCU. And you know what? It's quite good, because the meetings aren't very often, like once every three months. So I attended my first meeting a few weeks back. It's very interesting to hear from all the other academics of what they're working on and things like that. And certainly Hal Puthoff, in regards the defence programme studies into wormholes and alternate dimensions, really makes me think as to why spend so much money in those research support there was something there in the first place. So, it's kind of, to me, that kind of said we were we were bang on track with what we were doing. What we are doing, though, that is that we're seemingly pounding ahead forward, because you've got to have a really good mindset and understanding, because not only in the ufological field, but, Barry's got years of experience in the paranormal research behind him. And if it wasn't of putting these things together and realizing that we're dealing with something of, all an entanglement of all this phenomena happening, the biggest problem for most people are still catching up is that compartmentalization, where the UFO and the paranormal guys just don't bring those subjects together. No. I think it's the only way we realized this a long time back. Well, the only way to move forward is to basically bring those things together and start working with it. But yeah, it's been interesting, and like Barry said, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and going off into other areas, and it just seems to never end because it is a huge subject, and we are slowly but surely chiseling away at it.
Yeah. No, thank you. Barry, have you anything to add on that before we move on?
I think that the direction that we're going, initially, certainly back from the 1950s, we have stepped forward from the idea of the nuts and bolts craft, and it feels like you're on a type of trajectory, and like an arc, and we then passed the ideas, because of the research and where our paths have taken us and where we've been pulling information from. We have passed that as well, and we're moving beyond that. In fact, now it's got to a stage now where we've almost gone beyond this aspect of other dimensions even, and we're sailing past that because we're following the work. We're following that breadcrumb trail, and we have to be very, very careful with it, because, like the last book that I brought out, there is a huge amount of deception with it. So we're pulling on all different areas, not only within ufology. We're pulling from a broad spectrum of information, because there is a fine line thread that weaves itself through many of the fringe research fields. So we see this commonality, and that's where we're pulling our information from, because the information was always presented to us, but in ways that we didn't. It just didn't click with us, and certainly from my perspective, I think being dyslexic, we use this particular dyslexic thinking, where we're able to see patterns where others have missed, and that has helped greatly in the work that we're doing, because there are many times I get onto the phone with Steve and I say, "Now, Steve, prepare yourself."
Are you laid down?
Very true.
This is where it's going, and in fact, I gotta say, even right up until recently, I got my ass handed to me in a plate.
You did it
because I got too close.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had to pay a big time for that, and I had to back off.
Anyway,
we'll not go into that.
Back off. I mean, I know, it usually fuels the fire, but in this case, I think it is his wife who said, "Look, if we don't have a quiet Christmas, then there'll be hell to pay,"
Yeah. Domestic abuse. Yeah. So I'm guessing that was like an official warning that you got.
You could take it that way, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I won't ask any more, because I know we're not going to go any further than that. Really, no. Right. Fair enough. Yeah. So no, cheers for that. Right. The next question is from Baby with a Laser. Did Steve investigate the Southmore Road Black Triangle reported by a taxi driver about 20 years ago?
I mean, yes, I did.
He did.
Yeah, amongst many others as well. I've seen it once in my life, believe it or not, just purely by chance. And where did I see one? And I'll tell you what, it was about 20 years ago. Funny enough, it was about 20 years ago. I was in my back garden.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I saw a perfect triangle just moving completely silently through the sky.
Yeah.
Had an apex light at each corner and a dim red light in its middle, and was moving southwest. And I was right next to Manchester Airport at the time as well, and this was about 8 o'clock at night. So And it was. I think I think one of the strangest things is seeing something and not hearing anything. It's quite profound. It's like standing by the side of a road and watching cars go by. Don't make any sounds. It is a really annoying feeling. But I am lucky enough to have actually seen one once, so I know now, obviously, what witnesses are seeing. I understand that those things are being flown around. God knows whose they are. It leads me to believe the problem might more likely be ours. But yes, I've investigated maybe about 6 cases of black triangle sightings, which are all quite interesting.
Yeah. No. Cheers, Barry. Have you had any black triangle sightings?
No, not for me per se. I do know of cases where they have been seen, but of course I was always late to the party, so I always missed that opportunity, and I found it very, very frustrating because up until maybe 10 years ago, all these dash cams were catching all this amazing footage and everything else.
Yeah.
I says, well, no, I'm going to have to get a dash cam. And it wasn't because of insurance purposes. It was because I wanted to see if I could capture
the phenomena.
And see, since the dash cam went in, not a damn thing has come across my path. And I noticed that even with the cameras, the specialized cameras that I use, the moment that they arrived on the scene, the phenomena backed off.
Yeah.
And this was something that Steve and I began to see in a Project Doorway. And this aspect in which the phenomena backed away from the camera, the true phenomena. And not talking about the man-made craft that obviously has now entered the foray and has really muddied the water within ufology.
Yeah.
But the true phenomena backs off from the camera. And that was interesting. We do cover that within the Project Doorways as to possibly why this is happening. But it's been interesting, and even as of late, we indicated that there was things going on, and cameras were strategically placed to capture the phenomena, and the phenomena stopped in those locations and moved to a location. In fact, just outside the property, where even though the cameras are switched on, and there's an IR light with them, they're not plugged into the DVR. So for any person coming around, they would see that there's a camera there. Stay away. So the phenomena acted within the camera range, but knew that the cameras were switched off. They weren't recording. Sneaky.
So it could read something.
Yes. There is a distinct intelligence, and this was something that even the guys in Skinwalker Ranch were noticing, because the scientists there on site were placing cameras, and they would discuss the idea of where they're going to place the cameras, and then place the cameras, and to find that the cameras would have been either broken, smashed, or even ripped out of the pole itself. The phenomena always made its way through and tried to disrupt the experiments as much as possible. It indicated that there was a conscious connection with it. And we see this even in EVPs during EVP capture, that there are times that we can think the question and which the answer comes on the recording before you even verbalize. So there is a conscious connection there with the phenomena. It is able to tap into you to see what are you up to. But there are ways around that, and that is something that we've been working on as to how do we steer our way around that phenomena, and it has been very, very interesting. And in fact, I devised a series of experiments with a number of paranormal groups, and the conscious connection was not there. I was not there. Questions were sent off in the mail. They were in a particular order that I wasn't aware of. They were being presented in a particular way. And it became very, very apparent that as the experiments continued, the experiment 1 succeeded, but experiments 2, 3, 4, 5 ran into dramatic and severe technological challenges where the equipment was breaking down. And it was what we determined from the first experiment, the results of the first experiment, they didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
So the next experiments, bang, 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 didn't happen.
Right. Because it picked up on it.
But we did get key information from that.
Right,
And that has
yeah.
helped us now move forward within this area to a little bit further into that darkness.
Yeah, I think also we did experiments in the project, Phenomena Project, it was called, in 2015, after about a good maybe 15 months of consistent communication throughout, through ITC, Instrumental Transcommunication in the EVP, that we got it to direct voice phenomena. It's always above you as well, always above. If you sat down, it's above you. If you stand up, it's above you.
Yeah.
What was interesting, though, that we were asked, we got to the point where we could ask some questions and get some, whatever those answers would be.
Yeah.
So on the next session, we decided to write down these questions, and we said we were ready. We got a communication to say okay, sort of thing, and then straight away we just got 10 answers. We delivered all 10 answers to us without us even asking the question. So they knew what we were thinking. They knew from us what those questions were and delivered the answers. So that's a big problem for us, because now we really don't know, whatever we're told, if it's legitimate or not, because they simply obtain the information from us. So Barry's dead on about this conscious connection, absolutely. And that's why deception is so easy for them to produce, because they can tell us what we want us to hear. We think, well, we're the only ones that know this, so it's got. If I get told this, then it's got. Oh no, far from it. And also, the capabilities in technology, when he's talking, when Barry's mentioned about passive infrareds and how they know these things. I mean, I think one of the greatest feats I've seen so far was here in this very room. Actually, I was sat in this room, windows just to the left of me, which is over the front door. But my front door has an inlet, so you have to. It's kind of underneath the window.
Yeah.
And I'm sat up here with my partner, and then there was a massive banging at the front door, bang, 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 like a bloody bailiff.
I was going to say, well, the bailiff's coming round with it.
I said, what the hell? So I jump up, and I can hear his banging. I'm looking out the window, and I look down, and I can't see nobody. So I said to my partner, I said, they've got to be stood in, right up right next to the door. I said, go down. So I'm looking. The light came on outside, so I'm thinking someone's really there. And she goes down, opens the door, nobody there. The thing is, I've got CCTV cameras, pointing at the drive and the walk up to my front door. So, oh, great, easy. I've got a system here, plugged it in. And what happened is that they deleted 20 seconds out of the video just when that incident happened. The thing is, the damn thing's not devised to be able to take out 20 seconds out of the video. You can't. This is an impossible feat to do or through a menu.
It's hard drive, isn't it?
20 seconds just at the time of that incident, because the video, it just shows her going out, my partner going out, going, where is it? And you can see that happening, but just prior to that, 20 seconds just taken out. It's incredible what they can do with technology, really is.
Yeah. Well, if they know what you're thinking before you fart it, then taking a bit of data out of a video is going to be nothing to them, is it?
Very clever.
It is.
I mean, remember an incident? It was a famous guy called Bocci. It was known for instrumental transcommunication through radios.
Right.
A series of experiments were done. I remember some years back that he was using an old radio. It was a 4-tube radio, and there were 4 tubes inside it. And he took out 3 of the tubes, and the only last tube there was the one that was basically associated with the power of running the device. And one of the scientist guys said, do you know what? If this happens now, when I take out that 4th tube, I'll eat that tube. I'll eat it. Jokingly. So of course he did, and it made no difference. The thing came to life with no power whatsoever. and the vocal responses came through. Remember, Bocce slowly turned to the guy and said, "You best not eat that. It's glass." You know, and it just goes to show, you know, the limitations of the capabilities of phenomena. You know, it's quite astounding.
So, I know I've asked you both before, but do you think it is all related? The UFO, the poltergeist, the spirits, the cryptids.
Me personally, my own belief system is, we're looking at the same source here.
Yeah.
If you look deep within each subject, you'll find the same patterns and things occurring throughout other areas. You know, crossover, like people would say, crossover points. You know, for instance, you know, the alien abduction scenario, you have paralysis, you've got the apparitions, paranormal stuff in bedrooms, you've got the paralysis, you've got unusual odors associated with the same sort of thing, with the UFO phenomena, with the paranormal, with the demonic, with cryptids as well. I mean, if you really start to look, they leave little clues, like Barry's saying, the breadcrumbs. And it's those little things that, you know, leads us into areas of following that path. And the more you follow it, the more you start to realize that, you know, we're far from really understanding what the true nature of this phenomenon is. And, you know, we used to think many years ago, oh, well, you know, the government must know pretty much everything. I don't think so. I think they're far from knowing. I think they know some bits, but they've gone to town on those little bits. But I think to get a real understanding of this, I think they're far, far from it.
Yeah,
I think along with the understandings of the crossover into the different research fields, we also have to understand that this is nothing new.
No,
this is something that's been going back thousands of years. We've been able to track it back through time to see the way that its appearance has changed. The way it interacted with us has pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah,
but its appearance has definitely changed. Sometimes twice in a generation. But no, this is nothing new. It's for some reason the humanity has the ability to forget. It has this unusual amnesia in which we forget the way that they interact with us, and we buy the next thing that comes along, and we accept it without question.
Yeah. So going back to the camera thing, like they know that they can pick up on electronic devices. When someone sees something, I've done it myself, the last thing you think of is taking a photograph or taking a video. Do you think that they put that far into your mind so that you're just looking at the phenomena that's going on, and as soon as it's passed, reality kind of kicks back in and you think, should have took a picture. Why did I not think of it?
There's a thing that tends to happen, and I call it the 20-second rule.
Yeah.
And when we initially have an interaction with the phenomena, our bodies are reacting to it at that very moment.
Yeah.
The problem is that we have become so detached from that sensation that we tend to ignore it. And if it goes past the 20 seconds, what tends to happen is that it can move the human brain into the theta rhythm. And that's where you get this overriding aspect of hypnotic suggestion, false memory, all of that can take part, and it also locks you down physically.
Right.
So that there's a serious implication there, because within the first 20 seconds, if we're not acknowledging the signals that our body is sending to us, and we fail to acknowledge that, then we can become trapped by the phenomena itself until it finishes with us. And you can be as sure as there's a hole in a duck's ass, if they're coming forward to you, it's not by chance. There's a bloody damn good reason for it, but they know it. You may not.
Yeah. And we personally experienced that out in the mountains, in the deserts, springs in the US, and specialized locations that we knew to go to through the research that myself and Brad put together. And we witnessed that firsthand, and we had to hightail it out there, to be honest with you. You know, it was, you know, this is a problem, because I think, like Bob Bowie says, we become so disattached with our true feelings, and
Yeah.
You know, we should rely on them more. That's what they're there for, that instinctual.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
There is a distinct metaphysical aspect to this phenomenon.
Right.
And we have to remember, you know, whenever we talk about nuts and bolts and all the rest, it can manifest. It can manifest into a solid form. But
Yeah.
just like you within ufology, where you've got a nuts and bolts craft landing and leaving impressions in the ground, you also have the same physical manifestation of phenomena appearing within the seance rooms of Europe. It's still the same phenomena. It's just in a different form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is a distinct metaphysical aspect to it, which up until probably until about the 1970s, we fail to recognize. There was this cloud in which the phenomena was happening, and we went nuts and bolts, and then we went Martian and Venusian, and then we started moving into this aspect and acceptance that there may be this metaphysical aspect to it. But within that metaphysical aspect, there is again, we're back to this deception. There's a vast amount of deception, and we see that time and time again. When you get these creatures manifesting and telling us, "Oh, we're here for the betterment of the human race, and we don't want you destroying the planet, and we're coming from whatever star system they're coming from, because there's some other star system that's going to come down and try and take over." All that crap never happens.
Right.
It's just a way of selling us. It's like a bad car salesman, and promises you everything until it gets what it wants, and then you're thrown to the trash heap.
Yeah, they're not bothered anymore.
No, and you can find traces of these forms of deception through many cases. I mean, there was a documentary that came out last year, weren't there, Barry? Which was the new version of the aerial school encounter.
Oh yes. And
you know what? I've seen documentaries on that loads of times. I know the case really well.
Yeah.
But there was just one piece of information within that new documentary, and it was only gleaned from talking to those. Well, they're not kids anymore, but some of them that had the most profound encounters, the nearest to these entities. And there was an incident that had taken place, and it stated that, you know, pretty much all the kids ran away screaming. You know, but there was about 3 kids that were seemed to be transfixed and moving towards this craft that was on the ground, and an entity that was stood on top of the craft.
Yeah.
Well, then what happened was that the next thing they said that they're drawn to what could only be described as like a projection appear of another entity that was running and skipping along the field, and then suddenly it would disappear and then suddenly reappear, and it was like a video scene.
Oh, to keep going back to the beginning.
And it just kept like a little video scene, and they were absolutely transfixed. Now, whilst they're transfixed, that other entity was coming towards them.
Right.
And they were completely unaware of those actions. And the last thing that they got pretty much is the messages of saying, "We want you to come with us," and that sort of stuff. But you know what? There was an element of deception in there right then. You know, of trying to get what they want. And I thought to myself, I'd never even heard of that little section until recently in the latest documentary. But I thought it was very interesting because, you know, the more you look into these cases, you just see so much deception. You know, and them just trying to get to do what they want to do, you know, and then they say, "Oh, you know," and then that one-liner message. It's like, if you meet the humans, this is the one-liner. You know, let's tell the kids, let's try and look after planet Earth. You know, and you know, I mean, what are these young kids going to do? You know, I mean, but it seems like the one-liners fed. You know,
it should be noted they don't really have a care for humanity as a whole, but they definitely need the planet in one piece. That's for sure.
Good reason for that as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, have you any idea what that reason is?
Yes, but we'll be bleeped out.
Never to be seen again. Right. No, cheers. Right, I'll move on to the next question then. So this is from Rick Allen, and he'd like to know: do the guests feel that there's any type of deception being displayed by the alien types? We kind of just answered that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Vast deception.
Yeah, and not just in the alien field, you know, the UFO side. I mean, pretty much in all those subjects.
Yeah.
No, cheers. All right. Next one is from Warren Arkastle. Do I guess feel that the whole abduction piece could just be work of the trickster element?
Yes, there is that aspect to it. High conscious awareness and trickster ability within the phenomena. But there's also an element to it where it has its own agenda. And that agenda is something that is surrounded like an onion. And those are the things that we need to keep peeling back. That's something that Steve and I have been working on, is pulling those layers back, stripping back to see, right, what is at the core of this. And that is something that they will go out of their way to protect.
No, thank you.
There was a guy I listened on the radio show. I never forget this. It was a few years ago. It was an American radio show, and a guy who had been conversing with what he thought was a family member, a past family member. And he'd been conversing with this family member for 26 years. Right. And it was on one particular day, he had the shock of his life when he was, you know, getting these communications that this whatever this thing was said things that he knew he'd been lied to for 26 years. I mean, it was just, the words ripped through him, you know, the most shocking, awful form of language and things said from what he thought was a family member. But he'd done that for 26 years. And you often think to yourself, you know, what is the endurance of this phenomenon and the reasons why? You know, it's hard to imagine. It really is. I mean, it completely, you know, upset him. I mean, he was just couldn't understand how that could happen for 26 years. But never to say though. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, what we perceive time and what they might do might be two different things. Or what's in it for them, sort of thing. You know, like I say, you know, like heavy elements of trickster will go to the extra length. I mean, 26 years is a long time.
Oh, yeah, that's half a lifetime, isn't it? Really?
Lifetime, yeah. Thought it was his younger brother.
Yeah. That's, imagine how he felt at the end of that, to just find out.
It's like
messed him up.
It's like, you know, was it worth 26 years to get that form of evil gratitude? Or someone's soul just sinking and realizing that it isn't what it is. I just don't know. I mean, 26 years is a ridiculous length of time, but you know, I think to myself, if anything is willing to put that much effort in, then they sure know what they're doing. They really do.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. That's bad. Right, next question is from Blue Shift. I'm interested in doing the UITC course. How and what can I expect from it?
Actually, yeah, when we put that together ourselves, myself and Barry and a couple of other people, well, let's put it this way: it is the most comprehensive UFO course in the world. And when we actually wrote it, it was taken over onto the MUFON website, and they were selling it through them. But then what basically happened is that we realized, because people were being contacted by a number of people, which are MUFON investigators doing the course. And I think the head office at MUFON got wind of this and they didn't like it because, you know, they've got their own UFO course, which you know, I've stated before, you know, is definitely out of date. And, you know, it doesn't take into consideration what we cover within the course. I mean, when we cover the UFO course, it does employ the paranormal aspects and experiments and the research behind those things and the evidence put forward. Is, there's not just a lot of things in there just thrown in there for information. There's a lot of data in there in regard to proven tested things, you see. So there's a lot of information in that, and I think it was about 300 pages long. It was it's an A4 color 300-page course, but it's a course that doesn't end, because what happens is that the phenomena doesn't end. It's always learning more stuff. So every now and again, more modules are completed. I think there's about 6 or 7 in the new modules, I think, been added to it since the first done. And we give them out for free to the people that do the course, so it's a course that doesn't end. But the course is available in electronic. It's a lot easier to send the course out electronically now, or give them access to a Dropbox page where it just gives them all the information, and they can do the course. So it goes out internationally. All people need to do is just contact me and let me know if they're interested in doing the course, and we can set that up for them. That's not an issue.
Well, I've put all your contact details, your email address, your website, and that are all in the description. So if anyone wants to click on there, there'll be one way of contacting you directly, and just go from there.
Great stuff. And we should also point out that in regards that last question there, that researchers will spend half their life looking for this phenomena, and it's almost like throwing a dart into a dark blackboard and hoping that you're going to hit. What we do with the course is that we start to narrow that down, and we give you the ability to hone in on those areas, globally, of where you're more likely to have an experience, rather than just shooting into the dark.
So it's more pinpointed.
Yes,
it is. And it's also it teaches you how to prepare yourself for being in those locations as well, which is that's probably one of the most important things, actually. In fact, it came under as a warning, right? It was a pre-module warning, wasn't it? It's unnecessary to be so.
Well, I suppose something like that, you don't want to go in blind, do you, and not know what.
Not at all. And that's where a lot of the problems arise from, because people are caught out. The way that the phenomena can interact with them, it just completely throws them. And what we do is we try and realign the people and educate them to what signals they should be listening to and why. And from that, then the more experiences that they have, the more they will start to recognize the signals.
They'll be more in tune with what's going on.
And in fact, what I've discovered is that a lot of the phenomena in its traditional forms does not appear anymore whenever I investigate it, because I won't accept that particular deception. I said, no, I'm not interested in that. So it doesn't interact. So I'm my fine tuning now really narrows, so that I'm going after specific telltale markers within the field, so that I'm not wasting my time. I'm not being deceived by that trickster element, and how we can spot that in its infancy.
I mean, it is important to know that it does. Well, this phenomenon can have a sting in its tail. Even people that have been involved in long study programs, such as Bigelow, or 3 other individuals part of the NIDS teams, whilst they're at Skinwalker. There has been to the point where they were conducting certain experiments. Even Robert Bigelow has announced now through an interview with George Knapp. I mean, we were interviewed, myself and Barry, with George Knapp in LA, I think it was. Vegas, didn't they? They've done experiments. He said only, I wish I'd never done them. The amount of problems I've had, the negativity through his life, the multiple serendipities of just bad stuff. And it's not just him. There are a few members of the NIDS, same experiences. This is the problem, because though that we really have, that that passion to learn more. There's a time to step out of the bowl because, like you say, like Barry's said many times, if you allow this stuff to get under your skin, you end up with this long-term hitchhiker effect, and that has actually ruined lives. It's ruined lives, ruins people's marriages, lives, and that can really be a big problem. And the idea is knowing when to step back. Like I said so many times, you've got to know. You can research. There is a safe method to conduct investigation and research if you do it right, and you can take those steps forward. But if you try and run into this, and this stuff gets under the skin, then it can be hell to pay in some cases.
And we all know how that fared out for Travis Walton when he ran into the field, and the experiences that happened to Travis after that.
Yeah. No, thank you. So I'm just seeing how 45 minutes. We've got 15 minutes yet before we have a break. Next question is from Ryan, who out's doing the moderating. What are Steve and Barry's thoughts on the Rendlesham Forest incident? I always struggle saying that.
Yeah. Funny enough, we've talked about this on a few occasions, but I mean, let's like Barry says, it's all about location. And on this occasion, Rendlesham Forest, the Rendlesham lands, is quite well known historically for profound things that happen. It had a very strong association to the gentry encounters and small beings, fairy type character beings. And in fact, there's a number of small towns in that called Eldon or places like that. Gentry. I was
just going to say, where I work, I go around Suffolk and Norfolk quite a lot, and down to Essex and that, and going to Rendlesham and Thetford around there. And with you saying like Alvedon, you've got the where they got the log cabins, and that's in Alvedon, just at the side of it's in the middle of Thetford Forest, but where they've built the bypass and that, obviously it cuts through it. But you said you've got Wolvington and places like that as well.
If you look into those research, it's the sightings of dogmen and werewolves and and just all sorts of things. But it's it's no stranger to the paranormal. The theme in the forest is still no stranger to paranormal on occasion. But it's not the first UFO incident that's taking place there. There's been flybys and flyovers of UFOs, But I don't think it's an area of concentration of UFO activity. I think it's just one of those places where occasionally you can look up in the sky and something might dart across, It's been reported in the past. When we start getting into the nitty-gritty of Rendlesham Forest incident, according to the data and research that myself and Barry have looked at, it doesn't show the patterns of a true paranormal manifestation of a UFO nature. It just doesn't add up. And the more research you actually plow into this, you start to realize there may be more it not being an extraterrestrial or whatever it associated to be conclusion. And because it just doesn't add up with all the rest of the data. So it seems to add up with probably of a more experimental terrestrial type incident.
So one question about that, I can't remember the guy's name. So the guy that went over and touched it, and he got that like a data download with the 5 or 6 symbols.
Oh I mean, I mean, I know who you're talking about, and of course John Boers was there as Jim Pendleton. Jim talks about that. But you know what? That official documentation, which was apparently what I believe wrote into his booklet, wasn't even shown to Charles Holt. It didn't even appear till 8 years afterwards.
Right.
And when you look at the binary coding and start looking through it, it's very notorious. I mean, it talks about a mysterious island that disappears off the coast of Ireland. High Brazil, and all sorts of wonderful crap. To be honest with you, it's non-deserving to the case at all. It's like someone just had, well, what can we make up? And that didn't appear till 8 years afterwards. I am aware that John Hodge probably touched it or even climbed on top of it. For that, he probably had some medical conditions that I'm aware of. But you know what? When you're dealing with exotic craft with strange propulsion engines and stuff, maybe you just shouldn't go and climbing on them. You know, I mean, I certainly wouldn't know that myself. But you know what? There's much talk in the background about a specialized test being carried out to see how officers act under an unnormal, an unnatural scenario.
Yeah,
we've seen the same things being played out in the oceans now, aren't we? With the Nimitz and the Roosevelt against drones. You know, how do pilots react under normal conditions? How do soldiers act under those same conditions? These experiments have been going on for a long time. Happened back in 1973. Pilots flying starfighters in 1973 were pitted against the F-117A Nighthawk, which is the stealth fighter. Hard to imagine in 1973, isn't it? But they were pitted against it. They thought they were UFOs. They couldn't understand what they were dealing with. These are pilots flying the best aircraft at the time, which was starfighters. You know, those type of scenarios will play out time and time again, because it's the best way to get the results of how people react under pressure, under those conditions. You get a real live conclusion as to what the result would be.
Also, it should be noted as well, John Keel, he done a lot of work investigating this phenomena back in the 1950s and 60s, and he acknowledged that there was a huge amount of UFO sightings that were happening in the United States that were also staying within county boundaries.
Right.
Why are aliens interested in county boundaries? That in itself would indicate that there may be something a little bit more terrestrial behind the phenomena. And that's where it gets very, very convoluted, because the true phenomena of our ancients has got muddled within the 20th century, within the new design, the new craft that we're creating. And makes it very, very hard to acknowledge that. But there is a way that we can, but there are dangers with that as well. There's a new report was released there within the last data download, and it signified that for people who got close to, especially the man-made craft, that there's something up with the shielding of that. We haven't managed to correctly harness that or guard ourselves from that. But within, for anyone who gets within, I think it's 300 feet, or else it was 100 feet, it's detrimental to you on a health basis. And I think it was, what was it, 4 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 had died of cancer when being introduced to this phenomena by getting too close to it. That didn't happen back in the day. When with the true phenomena, that didn't happen. So we do see a distinction between ours and theirs.
Yeah. I mean, now I think the most recent information is coming out from a doctor, a scientist, who's recognized something, what he's referring to is white matter disease, where it's affects the brain if you're in close proximity to certain type of phenomena. It affects pilots when they're, I believe, pitted against some of these exotic craft. The downside is of building these exotic craft is that they emit harmful things to the biology of a human being. But you know what? I don't think people really care. They want a true, experience as to how pilot might react under those conditions. But the bottom line is that these pilots are going away, and years later, they're finding out they've got some significant issues, and brain scans take place, and they find that there's a series of similar people having similar experiences that have these white matter cells, like white parts of the brain. And it's an effect from what they believe is, prolonged or close encounter experiences.
Thank you. Right, just going to do one more question before we go for a break. What are your thoughts on Admiral Byrd?
Admiral Byrd, when I really delved into it, it turned out that he was misquoted.
He did a full documentary on it, didn't you, Don Belly?
And he was misquoted. there wasn't what was reported, which it has spiraled into what it is now, where UFOs, Nazi-inspired UFOs, were coming out of the water and shooting up the Navy and all the rest. That none of that was happening.
Right.
So it was a good story, but it just got out of control.
Right. So with this hidden continent, what are your beliefs on that?
Well, Baird as well said that he flew over the hole, and then went into the hole. Now, bear in mind, he wasn't in a helicopter; he was in a plane.
Yeah.
A plane only goes forward. Who's going to fly into a hole in a plane, not knowing what the hell's on the other side? Knowing that you could turn that plane and get out. So there were serious implications in again within the story. You're not going to send a plane that only goes forward into a giant hole, which he reported he did. Different if it was a helicopter. That's a totally different thing altogether. But that was not the case. He was in a plane. So again, from the offset, there were red flags that were coming up with the story.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I've only seen the interviews that he's done, the old black and white footage and that, and read a few bits on the internet, but not really been able to find anything more than that.
Yeah, I believe the main bulk of the story of the Nazi UFOs and things, and about an alien or something within the Arctic that would really overwhelm the America's military might. It was a Chilean newspaper, I think, that was misquoted.
A lot of propaganda, isn't it?
Yeah.
To say that the Germans escaped with the technology, and it was a lot of propaganda. There's stuff they probably even put out themselves.
But even in regards to that, we've got the thing in Poland again. We look at the whole Nazi thing. We've got the thing in Poland where the bell was said to have been harnessed to, and you've got this concrete Stonehenge almost. But that wasn't the case. That was the structure for a water tower that was never completed.
Right.
But again, this comes down to the research.
Yeah.
That shows that this other story of the bell has totally taken things completely out of context and moved in a direction that has only served to distract us from what we should be focusing on.
Yeah.
But there we go.
Yep. No, thank you. Right. So if you guys are okay, we'll have a 5-minute break.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll mute your mics because it's easier. So don't worry about that. Just in case you're up to no good in the background. But there's a 10-second countdown at the end. So if you do go off, then just come running back when it gets to about 5.
Okay.
All right then.
All right.
So see you guys then.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And we are back. Caught you then, Steve. Having a quick sneaky one. You're still muted. I can't do that. Can't unmute you, sorry.
There you go. Come on, yeah.
Oh, you all good?
I'm all good.
All good. All good, yeah.
Good.
All good.
Oh, right. So, next question for you both. It's like a double question. What would be your best or worst case scenario? So, if you got someone contacted you with a case, what would be your worst? What would be your best?
I think for me, the most concerning is when children are involved. I think that's probably a priority for me. Or anything where, people have been, if there's been injuries and you're talking severe frequency, severe severity cases. Luckily for me, I haven't had that many, maybe about 6, 10 over 40 years.
Yeah.
I had a family which had been plagued by very traumatic poltergeist type experiences some years back, and the girl was pushed down the stairs, her leg was broken. The gas fire, the gas cooker was being switched on. Had to carpet tape it down, the switches and things to stop them moving. The pets were terrorized, and it ended with I had a phone call about 3 o'clock in the morning. The woman of the house, who had 3 daughters, was screaming down the phone, and it must have been like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And I couldn't understand. I had to calm her down. She was screaming down the phone.
Yeah.
And she said, "Can I come? Can I get round there?" And what had happened was, luckily she only lived a few miles away, so I said, "Yep, don't worry, I'll come. Welcome. You can calm down, calm the girls down. It's no good you being like this, And they're only young, they're only young teenagers, the 3 girls." And I got there and I knocked on the door, and there was no answer. And eventually I heard a voice, and it was from the upstairs window. And she says, "We're trying to get down to the door."
Yeah.
Because the store, eventually she did manage to get down. After about 5 minutes, she eventually got down and managed to open the front door, and she just flung her arms around me crying, and I was saying, "All right, well, just calm down. What's happened?"
Yeah.
She said something came up the stairs. It was about 6.5 feet tall. It was some form of apparition. Its extremities were missing, its hands and its feet, but it seemingly was stamping its way up the stairs. Whole purpose of this was to scare the living daylights. It certainly did.
Yeah.
The 3 girls and the mother ran into the front bedroom and had barricaded the front door, the bedroom door, with every feasible piece of furniture they could lay their hands on. And it was remarkable when I saw it, because it was like one massive, great big cupboard, the bed, and all sorts of things. But, after a while, and things calmed down, and she rang me. By the time they tried to get out, they were probably thinking, "How the hell did we manage to move this in front of the door?" Because it took them ages to get out of the bedroom they barricaded themselves into. Eventually, I reached out to the church, and though that I don't often do that, because it's usually I've only found them to be about 12% successful.
Yeah.
But remarkably, it worked. Now, even if it's placebo based, it worked for them, and the phenomena subdued. Which is good. I'm pleased, because there was some injuries and there was some concern. The girls are being touched in not very nice places, and especially regarding the gas cooker knobs and the gas fire and things like that being switched on at night was worrying. So it had scratch marks and stuff. They'd wake up in the morning with them and stuff. So it was a very pleasant thing. And what I did find on that, on that particular case, was they kept saying, "We don't use the bathroom. We always use the ensuite because it uses the bathroom." I said, "What do you mean it uses the bathroom?" He says, "Well, we can hear the taps running at night and the toilet flushing." And so I set a recorder in there.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. I mean, first few nights, nothing, but eventually we did get it. We got the sound of the taps and with the sound of the toilet, but neither of them came on. The tap didn't turn, the toilet never flushed, but it was the recordings of the tap coming on and the recording of the toilet being flushing that was being generated in the bathroom.
Right.
You know, so I mean, if you just hear it, they assume the action's happening,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. But it was interesting to know, though. But yeah, so it uses the bathroom. I thought, well, it washes its hands afterwards. You know.
Strange.
Well, this you would hit to find some spooky poo on the handle of the door.
Yeah. No, I won't use the bathroom either. But, have you got one, Barry?
I think for me, and my research has really moved me in the area of understanding how this stuff is coming through.
Yeah.
And I've got very, very close to those doorways. My fear is that I'll, by sheer accident, slip through and not been able to find my way back. That's my fear. If I get too close, you know, I've been to one location where the research suggested there is a doorway here. And we put a time displacement monitor on it, and it was the first time that we actually got to see on the event horizon of this particular doorway, we got to see that there was a difference in time.
Right.
And we had often heard tell of the phenomena about how time reacts differently in that reality compared to ours. And it was the first time that we started to see it scientifically. And we started to get a wisp of it at that particular moment. So that in itself established the fact that, yes, there is something more going on here. But last July, I was doing some filming on it was a loch here in Ireland, and it's also known for a doorway, and a doorway, a portal, if you like. And UFOs have been seen there for decades. Monsters have been seen in the water and stuff like that. So there was always something going on. But I interviewed a guy who not last Christmas past there, but the Christmas before, who had his experience with two giant serpents that were in the water. Now, Ireland doesn't have serpents in any form whatsoever.
Right.
Plenty of rats down in Dublin in the Dáil, but no snakes. But I have to say that I was intrigued by this. There was other factors as well that he was delivering in his interview that he wasn't aware of the importance of those. So I was sitting behind the camera ticking the boxes to understand, yes, this guy has had his experience. He's mentioning things that is not the norm, and that is associated with these particular portals. But both of us, in separate occasions, both him and his boat, he was rowing, and myself in my boat, which is a motorboat, both hit this particular key area within the loch.
Yeah.
All I can describe it, and I wrote it in my notes, it's like going through treacle. It's all of a sudden the boat slows down. And if you're in a rowboat, you're going to be there for ages trying to get through this area. And it's not that there's a current or anything. And I knocked my boat into neutral, and it spun in the location. No wind. There was nothing like that. There was no current. It just spun and then spun round again and went in the other direction. And then again, started to go around the other way. That was the key point. That's where we wanted to be. But, you know, understanding and hearing others who have noted that these particular doorways, like in Peru and things like that, when you start to pass through them, it's like going through treacle. That was their words. It was as if passing through treacle. And that, of course, tied in with what I was experiencing last year on the lake. So, you know, there is an element there in which you do have to be very careful about getting too close. But it's part and parcel of what we've done, and how we get answers. You know, there's a certain amount that you can do, and you can read all the books that you want to within the metaphysical libraries. But there's a lot to be said about getting your feet out into the field.
Yeah.
And experiencing it, and by experiencing it, you're able to analyze it and break it down.
Yeah.
And there may be points that you're experiencing that you may have witnessed that others have missed.
Yeah.
So it helps build that greater picture.
Yeah. Can I just tell you to an experience that I had?
Sure.
Just want your opinion on it. So when I moved
Is this
from
the one where you fell in the bottle?
No, that's for a different show. That's after midnight. And I did fall, by the way. If anyone wanted to know. No, so originally from Manchester, up near where Steve's from, and I moved south just outside London, be 15 years now. So it's a place called Milton Keynes. It's not the greatest place to live, but it's somewhere. Anyway, there's one that I was out in the back garden, I was stargazing, and I just clocked something. Like I was looking at the house, and well, I was facing the house. Obviously, I was looking up because it was a clear sky. And I noticed something in the corner of my eye, and I kept my eyes on it. Didn't take my eyes off it, and watched it go all the way across. And I ran straight in the house, straight on the computer, YouTube, Google, everything, looking. I thought I'd seen a dragon. And went till about 2 years ago that I seen a picture it's a CGI picture that someone had put up on the internet. I'm like, oh my God. As soon as I seen this image on the computer, I got goosebumps, felt sick. It was one of them moments. Anyway, it's a pterodactyl, or what looked like a pterodactyl.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't flap its wings. It didn't make any noise. It wasn't swerving and going up, and it just like it was on a pulley, and it just. I probably watched it fly about a quarter to half a mile before it went out of sight, and I only just seen it because it was obviously the sky was clear, and this was a really dark brown tan color. And what got me was the way its wings were and its tail. So it had like wings like I'll get a picture up in a minute of the one that I found. But the tail, obviously, the tail went along, and then you have like that little diamondy point thing, like what a lion has. And it was that I just couldn't believe what I'd seen. But it was just 40, 50 miles outside north of London on, say, a Tuesday night. And it's just completely out of place. And I've never seen anything before like that or since. But then I'm thinking, how many people just walking around or driving around when it's dark and all this stuff is up in the air and no one's looking up to be seeing these things that are going on? Or was it something that had come through some sort of crossover, some dimension, a Stargate? I don't know.
So what have you learned from that experience?
That things that shouldn't, or we're told don't exist anymore, are actually still out there. That what we're taught in school that were here hundreds, thousands, millions of years ago are somehow still around. Whether it's different timelines running parallel to each other and crossing over, or it's something otherworldly. But there's definitely normal isn't normal. Put it that way.
Well, the next time you skywatch with ack guns.
With what? Sorry?
Ack.
All right.
Fire.
So I was thinking about this the other day, and so I'm just going to find the picture now.
Yeah.
And I thought, why did I not just like make a noise to try and attract its attention? It wouldn't have been the greatest idea I've ever had. But then I thought I was 3 foot, 4 foot away from the door back into the house. So I could easily just run in and lock the door.
But there are accounts of other
Yeah.
dinosaurs being seen. You know, they're seen in the I think it was Arizona or New Mexico.
Yeah.
They've been seen as well running across the desert floor.
You can.
Which is interesting in itself because unlike one that's seen flying through the sky, the fact that a family's out having a picnic and watching raptors running across the desert floor. This is not it's not a playback like the Roman Legion that you tend to see because the ground levels are different. You know, you're only going to see them from the knees up.
Yeah.
You know, our lands have changed considerably since the dinosaurs were here.
Yeah.
So the levels would all be different and wrong. But these things are running across the surface, which would denote that possibly that they've entered our reality.
Yeah.
They're in our time. But the oxygen, of course, would be very, very different to what they would have been used to.
There's a lot less percentage now.
Yeah. But what I don't understand is if you've seen a dinosaur running across the desert, I think I'd be going after it in the station wagon, or you know, I'd be trying to get some proof like the footprints. There bound to have been footprints that had been left. So it lifts it from just being an encounter, a personal experience, into something. Wait a minute, something else is going on here.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought straight away. I found the picture. I'll load it up now, and that's pretty much the angle that I seen it from.
Yeah.
Other than the wings were bigger than that.
Yeah.
There was a lot more depth to them, and the wingspan was a lot wider. Didn't quite see the face. I didn't have that kind of angle on it, so I didn't see the eyes, but the feet, the hands at the top of the wings, and then definitely the tail. And that was what I'd say it was about 16 to 20 foot wingspan and probably about 24 foot nose to tail.
Yeah, not the type of thing you want to call down.
No, well that was another one of them because I had my phone in my hand and I could have easily just gone. Because and I didn't think of doing it. I think I was mesmerized, caught in the moment. I was just watching it go from my right till it completely flown out of sight. And I told one of my mates about it. Went, could it not be a kite, like on a string? I'm like, well, it could have been, but it'd have been a pretty long string or rope or what.
Yeah.
But what got me that it didn't flap, it didn't.
Yeah, they were sore, aren't
No
they?
movement or nothing like what you'd see in the movies. It was just solid straight line and then gone.
Yeah, there is the chimera theory, which is that there is the phenomena can present itself in so many different ways. I mean the traditional ones that get talked about is usually Sasquatch or Yetis, to dogmen and werewolves, but these lizard men, have been reported. These flying things, the Owlman, the Mothman.
Yeah,
I mean, are these a chimera from, just made up by the phenomena, and we just witness things? It just now and again, there's a conscious connection between the phenomena. I mean, the phenomena seems to know those that have interest in it. Just now and again, they throw something in front of you. As it to appear, well, that could be pretty much random. I was only saying to Barry the other day about a mountain in Argentina where the actual cryptids are minotaurs, the two-legged walking bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get. Sounds like something from the Greek history days, doesn't it?
Well, when I seen that flying off, I used to watch Sinbad in the Eye of the Tiger and all that kind of stuff. Or like the really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a question. What were they really talking about? I mean, it doesn't just happen in Greece. It happens all over the world where you've got very strange animals and things that are said to have been seen. And there's some really good evidence out there to support that people have seen these things.
Yeah.
But what is it they're seeing? And because there's so much variance in what's being seen, and because these things are being seen all over the world, leads me to think that there's a source. and that source can present itself in any way and any form, and really, it can be really something quite profound.
Yeah, but I think that is definitely at the top of my list of experiences and encounters, because I'm never in a million years would I have ever thought I'd see anything like that. And it's one of those, what you've seen. You don't need people to believe you or not. I know what I've seen. There's only me there. And it's just one of them. And it was amazing. It really, really was. Even when I tell you the story, I like relive it and picture myself stuck there and looking up at it. And it's just the whole 15, 20 seconds.
You say it was getting near dark.
No, it was about half 10, 11 o'clock at night.
No, and what, pray tell, what made you look up?
I was already looking up like at the star constellations and that, and then as I'm looking, I just seen something just there, just caught my eye, because I'm close to a lot like the airport, so I'm near Luton Airport, Birmingham Airport. There's a few RAF bases and that around near where I am, so you get a lot of drones and that going over it as well. So I had is it Flight 24 radar, so you could see all the different aircraft it was. I used to use that quite a lot, but I just seen something, and it's like I thought I was seeing things at first, and then it's like when you're just looking at it and you think it's just going to vanish or it's going to change and you're going to see what's really there, and it just stayed the same. I just watched it. Wasn't going that fast, probably 15, 20 miles an hour. Probably not even that, to be honest.
I've noticed on occasions now, because when I've witnessed things myself, and sometimes it's as if the phenomena doesn't allow you to react normally until a duration of time. I mean, I've witnessed some strange things and have gone past. Now, normally, I'd be jumped straight out the car. Anybody who knows me, I would. They'd just say, "Oh, jump straight out the car. You'd be straight there." But no, the vehicle has to drive on another quarter of a mile, and then me to suddenly say, "Did you just see what I saw?" And then somebody.
I've done that as well.
It doesn't, it's as if it doesn't allow you to consciously react to the way you'd normally react under those circumstances until it's ready, until it releases you from that moment. And now you're could be quarter of a mile down the road by the time you're kicking yourself, thinking, "I don't understand why I didn't jump out the bloody car."
Yeah,
well, I can definitely agree with that 100%. I was coming back from Cork, and was just passing over through Mayo and the hills of Mayo, and I seen this thing off to my right, and it was not performing like a plane, nothing like that. And there was a road to my right that would have taken me directly underneath it. Now I had a full sunroof in this Jeep. I could have seen right underneath it. Instead, I looked at it and said, "I got to get home," and I kept driving. And it was, as Steve says, you're down the road, and you think, "What the hell am I doing?"
Yeah.
I've missed my opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I just tell you another one quickly. Well, I remember I was driving where I work now. I'd only been there a few months. It was early morning, probably about this time of year. So it was like, so it's still dusk, kind of. So I'm going from Northampton, like I said, just outside. I don't know if you guys know the areas. You probably do. And I was going over towards Oakham in near Stamford. That country roads, you're going past Rutland Water around that way. And I'm driving along, and I could see there's like, obviously, you got the country lanes coming off, and these banks of trees either side, these farms and that, little villages. Not towns. It's not that big. It's just like 7 or 8 houses in each village. And I was on the phone to my missus. So I'm driving the van. Where they have on the transit, they have the quarter light at the front. Yeah. And I could see what looked like an old headlight. So say off a Cortina or I think it was like a Cavalier-shaped headlight, but it was going through the trees, and it was only moving really slow like that. But it was going round the branches and through all the twigs, and I'm like, that. I was telling her, and I was just and same as you, Barry. I could have easily just turned right and pulled up under the tree where it was. But I just kept going straight.
Yeah.
But as I got level to where that road was, it vanished. It didn't blimp out or anything. It wasn't there. And it's just like a headlight just going.
Yeah.
But it was the old, like the old orange bulbs, not like the LED ones and that you have now.
Yeah.
It was like the orangey yellow colour. And the same sort of thing. It wasn't until I got probably about a mile down the road, I was like, why didn't I just turn off?
Yeah.
And I was looking in the fields to see if someone was flying a drone. This was like 7:20 to 8 in the morning. I'm thinking, who'd be flying a drone at that time? It'd be, you know what I mean? And just didn't think of turning off.
Yeah.
No, it is strange because you question yourself afterwards, but you don't act how you would normally act under what you think is a normal circumstance. But just goes to show that how quickly and efficiently it can grab you, this phenomenon, and it can restrict you, limit you, until you're released from that, and then suddenly your normal thought patterns think, well, hang on a second, why didn't I say something or do something at the time, and that is such a profound phenomenon. It really is strange.
The only thing that I did do that I found quite normal was I try and debunk it. So I seen it in the quarter light, then I leant forward to see if I could see it in the windscreen, and then the side window. So I thought it could have been a reflection from the passenger mirror. It's got the two mirrors bouncing up, and it could have been a car behind or a house or something. I thought, why don't I just put the window down and stick my head out? So I did that, and it was still there. So it wasn't a reflection.
Yeah, balls of light phenomena is quite common, but I mean, of course, some areas of the country, people would refer to that as a paranormal incident. In other areas, they'd probably refer to a UFO incident.
Yeah,
it's just like I say, like before, it's balls of light phenomena seems to be associated.
It was the shape of an actual headlight unit of, say, the old Vauxhall Cavalier.
Yeah, strange. It's a strange one.
Yeah. Never seen anything like it before or since.
No, I had one seen in the tree opposite, right outside my bedroom window. I mean, there's a guy opposite us who's got a big tree in his front garden. One night, myself and my partner watched a ball of light moving in and out around the tree, very slowly, about the size of a football. And we watched it slow down and it went gone.
Right.
Just ball gone. I have no idea. And we even begin to think what all these things are. But you know what? Why should I see it? Why would it be across the road from my window?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the common things I've got used to. And also sometimes it might have been that the fact is that what was the precursor that night when you went out and saw that thing in the sky? Why did suddenly that time decide to go out and have a look at the stars?
Yeah.
Was you set up to the experience? I mean, you got to think of, where does that experience start? Is it start at the sighting, or does it start at the impulse of doing something that triggers it?
Yeah. Like you guys were saying before, they, whoever they are, know what you're thinking before you thought it. So have they set that up for you then to go out and experience that?
And this is why we are dealing with the most elusive phenomena in the world. It really is. And tricky.
Just a little bit.
Tricksy.
What would we do if we didn't have it? We won't be sat here now talking about this.
I think really in all customs throughout the years, it's always been there. People accepted things for what they were in myths, tales, legends, stories. To thinking that they're the ancestors, the whatever, the guardians. It's like I say, the face changes of this phenomena consistently, and there are so many different names for it and beliefs for it, but I think really more in recent times we've started to question. Okay, all right, we know there's something, but what is it, and how and why? How do we start to even begin to try and understand what it is? Because back in the day, there was probably that thought wasn't given about you know, until we really got to sort of technological era as to think, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, because sailors used to have these things at sea and used to call them guardians, or they must have been guarding us, you know, or they must have they helped us, you know, through a storm, or, you know, they led us a path, you know, and all sorts of things they could attribute these things to, because they have to try and attribute it to something. But they didn't really get into any forms of, you know, really trying to figure out what the hell these things were. They became accepted and storylined.
Yeah.
You know, but it's only now we look back and we can say, okay, well, you know, now we can start studying what these things are, because they're present in today's day, just as they were hundreds, if not thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Like you said, they're being accepted now. So we, like you said, we know they're there. It's just finding out what they are and why they're there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing. That's something we really need to really sit back and rationalize, and come to terms with. I think if we do that, it'd be interesting to see how the phenomena would react. And I think, looking back at history, we have seen it time and time again, where, especially when you've got a human race which does get to a certain point where it has freedoms, where it has got the ability to step outside of the normal. I need to feed, I need to sleep, I need to work. We live in a time now where we have got those freedoms to sit back and ponder, and then start to challenge the phenomena in its multifaceted appearances.
Yeah.
And when we look back in time and we see these particular times when humanity also reached these pivotal points, we end up in a reset.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing to go look back over history and see these times happen, where we're reaching and we're starting to, wait a minute, reset. Wait a minute, reset. Wait, reset. And there's a phenomena that, and a term that we're even hearing now in the mainstream media, reset.
Yes. Since the beginning of lockdown. Well, it started at the beginning of lockdown, didn't it, really? The reset phrase.
Actually, yeah, I think it was on that term.
So,
but we shouldn't talk about that, otherwise they'll take you off the air.
That's why I said lockdown and not what I was going to say. Careful with my wording. You think, wouldn't you? Yeah, so right. Right. So
as Father Jack says, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Right. Got a few questions now, so we'll go through these. Is that all right, guys?
Yes.
Perfect. Right. So this is from Umbra. Are there any particular experiments that seem to be most successful?
Experiments that seem, well, you know, if we look at, it's nothing new, by the way. I mean, when we talk about C5 protocols and stuff, Stephen Greer's work, the whole process of you can communicate with them, you know, that's always been there. It's always been there. It's been there since the early days of the seances and the Ouija boards, and you know, if you gather people together of like-mindedness, and you want something to happen, it can happen. You know, there's that conscious connection with the phenomenon, and it can manifest. It can manifest around the seance table. It can manifest light in the sky. And occasionally, if you look at 4 mediums sat around a seance table and something manifests, you know, it's no different than taking 4 guys that meditate onto a given location, like you would do in a C5 protocol, and have lights appear in the sky. It's the same process. It's exactly the same method. It's just doing it in a different location.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been to some of those C5 protocols, and I've not been impressed, especially when they're all delusional about a 727 coming into land at LA.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's a bit, it makes you but the truth of the matter is that there is something beyond our scope of sight and hearing that is around us and intelligent and observes us, and it knows us very well, and it knows to interact when it wants to interact, and they choose to.
Yeah.
And they don't get me wrong. It seemingly they like the observers. They like to interact occasionally. You know, they like it. And but when that does, you know, people are always going to scream. Usually, the first thing that comes to their mind is that, oh, you know, we're communicating with ETs. In fact, most of the research now points to light phenomena not being crafts, physical crafts. There's evidence to support that we're not only dealing with physical crafts in our atmosphere, which might house entities of some sort, but also that we're dealing with a light, an intelligent light form.
Yes.
You know, and these look like balls of light. They also are called droppers. They drop small beaded things, small ones of themselves that seem to dissipate or dematerialize or go somewhere else, whatever. You know, there's evidence of some good information. There's even video footage of them striking two of these things with a missile. And completely disintegrated after being hit by the missile, and then all the particles reform and go back to its original shape, and it just carries on. You know? And that was military footage. In Afghanistan, I mean, you know, U.S. military base in Afghanistan, which they struck two of these things with the missile. So you know, we don't even know what's physical, what's non-physical in the sense of understanding. You know, well, some of these are clearly crafts, but some of them might not be. And there's even talk, if you go back to sort of from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was even quite a considerable amount of research to consider that we might have living organisms in our atmosphere. You know, and occasionally we don't see them, or on certain occasions we do, and they interact in certain ways. And even now, I mean, NASA are even suggesting that they might be high ionospheric biological life, like what we refer to as space worms and things like that. I mean, we really don't know, you know, what these guys are shared with, but I think we're dealing with more than one thing there, and I think we get all mixed up. I mean, the ball of light phenomenon, you know, they made a big fuss over it over the Foo Fighters during the Second World War. You know, and you take that ball and put it somewhere else, it becomes something different. You know, it's just. But what's interesting about those things is that they seem to act intelligently, you know, and that's what makes them think that, well, are you dealing with a living organism of some sort? Is it extraterrestrial? Could that be extraterrestrial? I don't know. Could be terrestrial, and we're only finding out now, thinking that it's extraterrestrial. I really don't know, but the ball light phenomena is probably the most significant of all sightings. Take place around the world and have done for a long, long time. More so than structured craft.
There are you know, in regards to some of the experiments, obviously we're coming from a perspective where the phenomena is coming from one particular source. So there is an experiment that you can conduct much more down to ground level. If you wished to have an interaction with the energy, if we call it that, and if you have a group of friends that you can rely on and trust, and or you have your team or whatever the case may be, use over ear. They have to be over ear, not on ear, but over ear noise cancelling headphones, and eyewear, so that the person who's doing that doesn't see what's happening, he can't hear what's happening, and have that connected, have the headphones connected to a Frank's box or some other type of device that produces that style of noise that we interpret and get voices from, alleged voices. But when you have a sitter that's in that particular position and is blinded and can't hear what questions are being asked quietly within a room setting, it's very, very interesting. I've seen positive results coming from this style of experiment, in that on the quiet questioning, it's very easy to make that connection with something coming through this device. And it's the sitter should be voicing the words or sentences of what he or she hears at that moment in time.
Right. Yeah.
And we've had two-way conversations with things coming through. Again, at the back of your mind, you're always aware that be aware for deception, watch for its trait. There are particular markers that will indicate what you're dealing with. But that particular style of experiment can create contact very, very quickly, very quickly. But you really have to be very aware of what you're actually communicating with. And be aware of its reach.
No, thank you. Cheers for that. Right, next question is from Adam Sandor. So the last guest that we had on, I won't give the names. They was convinced that cattle mutilations were done by governments. What are your thoughts?
I think some of them could be. I mean, now. You've got to look back. You've got to follow the phenomena back. If you don't follow it back, it was going on long before we had the technology to do those sort of things. Long before we had even aircraft in the sky. I talked to about 20 odd years ago. I talked to a guy who contacted me. We had a chat on the phone one night. Indian fella. He was a doctor himself, and he was in his 50s. And he said he told me about a story that had been passed from his father to him. It had been passed from his grandfather to father. And his grandfather, he lived in a small town in India, small village, where they rushed out to get livestock in when the lights came down from the mountains. We're talking a 3-generation back here. And they'd rush out there, to get them in. It was his father would have to go out there when he was young and get them in quick, and
he knew what was happening and what was going on.
It's a phenomenon that's been going on for a long time, and even though that it's feasible that the military might be, some covert militaries might be doing some things, but I think if you got to look at the phenomenon, we'll go back in time, and it's been going on all over the world, as well as Ireland. Ireland's got a history of the mutilation phenomenon.
We can go back to the just before the 20th century, and we've got accounts of the mutilations happening there. But back then, we didn't blame it on aliens; we blamed it on the fairies. So again, we're back to the same phenomena, different mask. So that was another thing to understand. Now there are some pointers there within our own research that would indicate that whatever is going on with the cattle mutilations, and it's not just cattle. We shouldn't get lost in that particular fact.
No.
It's foxes, it's rabbits, it's sheep, it's all different animals across the scale.
Horses as well in France over the last couple of years.
And I think in that particular aspect, there does seem to be something which indicates that there was an issue, or there is an issue with something they're working on that would suggest a problem with the immune system, because they're targeting the mucosa of the animals. And points of entry to the animal. Now, these points of entry and the mucus isn't produced on vast amounts until fear is brought into the equation. The animals have to be frightened to a severe point where the mucosa is being produced across the scale. And those are the areas, the entry points to the bodies. That's what's being harvested. So there's something about the immune systems that they're after. So we'll see what happens. And I think Andy has froze. So he's going to reboot. He'll go into the SSD. It'll be back in 30 seconds. So interesting that we're talking about and getting into the crux of it. And suddenly he's cut off.
Suddenly, yeah, the vital bits of information.
Oh, it's seen it time and time again. Yeah. Thank God we weren't talking about our recent research, or we wouldn't even have got off. We wouldn't even get off the first step.
It's a good job, yeah.
Our electric would have been cut here, and
yeah, black now. We'll pop back in shortly, won't we?
Oh well, yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if the guests can hear us that are listening.
Yeah,
Andy, you're
sorry
back.
about that. It did it. It did what
you're quite
I
all
knew
right.
it was going to do.
Yeah. We were just talking about that. We were having a laugh about it.
I told you it was going to do that. I don't know why. Everything decides to freeze.
Yeah.
Keyboard doesn't work. Mouse doesn't work. So, quick reboot. I was less than a minute, so good.
You were good.
Sorry about that, Barry and Steve.
You're quite all right. You're quite all right. We had finished up and we got to talk about the new research and about where we're going, and then we just waited on you coming back.
Just sat there in silence, tapping the fingers. Yeah, right. It's all good now anyway. Sorry about that, everyone.
You're quite right.
Right. So, next question's from Space Cadet Liar. She wants to know, John Keel thought there was a specific day and time of day to experience phenomena. Have our guests come across this too in their data?
John Keel was an avid supporter that UFO flaps would especially happen more so on a Wednesday, and usually after 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
Now the thing is, from our perspective, certainly from my perspective, when I'm looking at a broader picture of the phenomena, I do see that there is something happens as the sun begins to set, and we start moving into that darker period of the day. There is that particular time, and even Steve, he came across here to Ireland, and I had him racing up mountains, and I was continually telling him timing is everything,
Yeah.
and he wasn't quite sure what on earth I was talking about until he got to experience some of the phenomena himself on tops of those mountains. So yes, timing is everything, and John Keel was tapping into something there. It's unfortunate that the technology and the information that he was pulling on, he didn't have access to a lot of the new stuff that we do.
Right. Yeah.
But he was onto something there. And I'm not aware of anyone else who has gone back and looked per se at John's stuff in regards to the Wednesday manifestation.
Right.
But it is interesting that he also commented that this particular phenomenon would appear more so in the wilderness, away from people, in the countryside, at times whenever people are sleeping, whenever they're in their beds and things like that, and in forests or in the middle of lakes, away from the populace. He said that more times than not, the true phenomena would appear away from people. Whereas nowadays we see this distinct change, and again we're getting back into the man-made stuff, where stuff is happening over cities, and there's a lot of appearances happening over towns and cities and villages and things.
Yeah. No, thank you. We've got. Are you all right to go over for a few minutes, or do you need to get going?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. Because we've got about 6 more questions. Is that
okay?
Right?
Fly through them.
Yeah, do rapid fire. I will try. Right. So Blue Shift, phenomena aside, what can you discuss about the source, if anything?
Well, it's quite interesting. I recently started talking about the source after a team of Japanese guys, and what was it called now? It was Advanced CRS System or something. It was an AI system, an AI computer.
Yeah.
Now, if you go back in time to around about 1966, I think it was, Jacques Vallée was preliminarily working on those levels of very high technology of computers at the time, which is nothing compared to today's, to be honest. We've tried to utilize AI to see if it will give us any feasible answers as to what phenomena might be. Because, one of the biggest things that we have is a problem nowadays is a belief system. And even though people might say, well, you know what, I don't have a belief system, we'll never know, we truly, really ever know if they do lean to one thing or another. Well, AI doesn't have that if it's not programmed to have it.
No.
It doesn't have a dog in a race, should we say. So you're more likely to get some form more of a realistic. But that's if we don't need that creative mind of the human being involved or not. We still don't know yet, But later, it didn't work too well back in the 60s, late 60s, as you can imagine, because the technology wasn't great, so it didn't work out too well. But I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, a team invented a very clever artificial intelligence system and fed 3 years of data apparently into it. And when they said data, they mean every specific bits of information, that all the subcategories associated to the subcategories of the phenomena. So in other words, you might say UFOs, but it'll specifically look in, all the data of alien abduction, what people have experienced.
Yeah.
And then it might look at cryptids, all the different types of cryptids that have been experienced, all the types of things that might have happened and been reported during cryptid experiences. And the same for the paranormal and numerous other different subjects. And after 3 years of putting the data in, they wanted to see, would it come up with some theoretical answer as to what is responsible for all this? I thought they would have probably been expecting reams and reams of information. They didn't really get that much. But what they did gather was information pertaining to, it's suggesting, because what's happened is the AI is because the way it's built, it has picked up on all the connections between phenomena, like we were talking about earlier about that compartmentalization between UFOs and the paranormal and the cryptids, the metaphysical, supernatural, spiritual, call it what you will. They're all in these separate areas of different research. Well, the AI realized very quickly, well, hang on a second, that's been reported in this and that's been reported in that. So it was shown so much connectivity over these incidents all over the world that it thought it was a source. There was one source responsible. So that's how it calculated. It calculated that there was a source responsible that had the capabilities of creating physiological constructs. Now that's a quick, interesting thing when we say physiological construct, because everything's a physical construct. This is it. I am. This is around me. Physiological construct, and the phenomena can present itself as a physiological construct. It can be a real thing, like I said before. UFOs that come down to the ground leave impressions. People have been thumped by paranormal phenomena and had physical marks. So it does have that capabilities of being physical constructs. But at the same time, it might not be. It can seemingly become a non-physical construct. So, in a sense of speaking, you really are dealing, like Barry said, in the metaphysic world there. And where and how it's produced. Is it coming through from one side to another? And sometimes they just rely on skimming between realities, maybe, like when we talked about the 1997 lights in Arizona. We had a very large triangular craft, and they were all seen to be shimmering, and it was as if, like Barry said, it was skirting our reality in a sense of speaking. So it was very interesting because the AI thought there was a source responsible for it all. that source has the capabilities of creating all sorts of different types of physiological constructs. I guess it was the easiest path out. And that was without anything being programmed in to give it any belief. He didn't have a dog in a race, so it was just basically that data was just given from the information put in. What it doesn't do, unfortunately, it doesn't lend hand to how it might have to be a biological, chemical association. In other words, a real living person to have the experience as being part of that phenomena. I mean, if we didn't exist, would that phenomena exist? Does it need us? And are we a vital part being taken out of the AI that it's needed, to be part and parcel? Is it a conduit? It's happening, between a phenomenon and observer, in a sense of speaking. So it was an interesting start, and that's the time when I sort of started seeing the word source. And what is the source? Well, some people might say, well, you know what, source is God. And God can create and do anything. There's all sorts of different names and things people can give this thing to. And maybe it's some type of matrix computer program. Who knows? We don't really know. But one thing is we know that now is that there is some good things that can come from AI in trying to assist us with these matters. But at the same time, you can't rule out that there's a fundamental thing missing, which might be that humanistic side of things. Who have the experiences.
Well, thank you. This one is from Mike now, for Barry. Where's the best place to go camping, in your opinion, in the UK?
I would definitely head up to Scotland.
Yeah.
There's a place up there that really rings home. And in fact, just let me call it up here so that I can give them the name of where it is. There we go.
Definitely not the island of the dead, yeah.
No. Well, he said the UK, so I'm going to stick to the UK borders. Now it's just south of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And it is just off the A70, I think it is. Yes, there was an abduction event that happened back in I think it was the 1990s.
Yeah.
And it was the S70, I think. But I'll give you a specific name of where. I think this is common land, so there shouldn't be an issue with anything.
Well, I know wild camping is not illegal in Scotland. I know it is in England and Wales.
Yeah. I would love Ireland to go down that particular route of being able to do that free.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's illegal over there as well.
So yes, just off the A71. It's south of the A71. So where are we? You're just northwest of Netherton, Netherton. You are east of Bogside and west of Forth. So that will be able to pin that for him in that particular area. It's in the middle of a huge and very strong magnetic anomaly, positively charged magnetic anomaly. Tech friends, Mike, don't go on your own. And because this particular place, this area is known not only for abductions, it's also known for attacks within UFOs. It's also known for dogmen, mutilations, and stuff like that. So don't take it lightly. But Mike, do keep me informed about what happens, because it's always a place I've been wanting to go to, but never got around to it.
Yeah. Well, if he does go, we will not hear from him. We know what's going on.
I know nothing.
Yeah.
Barry told me nothing.
You never told him to go there.
No. Conversation never
Yeah, we'll delete this bit out. No, cheers for that, Barry. Right, so we've got 4 more questions. So next one is from Tino. Steve, have you investigated the alleged haunting of Bleaklow Moor, where a fortress plane crashed in the 1940s? The pilot haunts a wreckage area. Thanks.
Yes, been there a couple of times actually.
Yeah.
There's some interesting reports. You know, I mean, there's plane wreckage around. You know, you can find wreckage, old wreckage. It's a combination of the land, really. I mean, it's just one of those things that has always been a problem, where you've got low cloud and high hills. You know, I mean, the two come together, and especially on the rising, because you've got water down below in certain given areas, and you can have, you know, and that crawls up the mountain sides and it causes low cloud, and it's very poor visibility, and it caught many a pilot out over time. Yeah, it's a notorious area, and people claim that they have reported seeing things, but then, you know, it's very difficult because on when it's really bad, I mean, you literally, with the fog, you can't even see your hand right at full stretch of face. So anybody who's maybe at a distance, because sound doesn't carry very well through it, you know, might be just milling past, because there are people just walking around, believe it or not. They do. Even in bad conditions, they still do. Anything that you might see, you might put down to something more paranormal nature, of course. But it's a strange location. I was involved in a March 1997 incident up at Lady Bower as well, and of did a UFO come down or not, and that sort of thing. Yeah, interesting. Local people, you know, go up there hiking a lot, have stories to tell, that they see pilots, you know, and in the old gear and the old clothing and stuff. But remnants of old aircraft have scattered the light along. It's like a graveyard for them. And there is a monument up there as well, actually, for them.
Yeah.
People have perished.
Cheers for that. Right, next one is from Space Cadet. Have our guests an opinion on the giants that have been spotted recently walking along on mountaintops?
I did see one of those particular photographs. I believe the photographer, I think he vanished shortly after that particular photograph was released. I'm not quite sure. But I don't really have an opinion on it. I don't have access to the original file so that I can have a look at the metadata.
Right.
And also the exact location. I don't know where that is, so that I can cross-reference. So that's the only thing that I can say on that.
Yeah, I've heard some things of the grey man or the grey giant of in Scotland. You know, that's been reported and seen a few times. But it is also a phenomenon which is quite associated with mountains, known as the Brocken Spectre. And the Brocken Spectre was first, funny how it came about. It was a Professor Brocken who was researching lycanthropy back in the day. We're talking quite some time back. And he went up to meet some native Indians who the story said they could change the figure into different beasts. So he went up there, and it was a very high altitude, and he realized, of course, you know, they didn't actually physically change into these animals, but they thought, you know, I guess they thought they did through the process of trance and whatnot. He didn't go out empty-handed, because the guys, he had one camp further down below, and they reported to him, because he was up there and it was low cloud, that, you know, on the top of this cliff, is that he could cast his own shadow on top of the cloud.
Ah, right.
He was so high up.
Yeah.
And of course, the people down below saw a giant figure, appear in the cloud, you see, and it became known as the Brocken Spectre. And it happens, you know, when people are walking ridge lines and high mountains and things like that, where they do have the capabilities of casting a shadow onto low cloud or mist or fog, that their shadows are seen and sometimes do get reported as giants, you know. I mean, I mean, I'd understand that to be happening, but I don't know. I don't know if it's that. I mean, I think there's probably, in some cases, especially regarding the giant, the grey giant from Scotland, he's had numerous different reports of people who claim to have seen it. So,
and I have to say, being the devil's advocate, the Grey Man of Bendui, or I think that's what is called, a particular mountain that he appears on. I did manage to speak to a person in Scotland in which his father had come across this particular Grey Man, and in regards to the skeptics who were saying, "Oh, it's shadow, it's shadow, it's shadow." This particular thing ripped the backpack off the hiker. That goes beyond a shadow. So I'll leave that there.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, definitely not a shadow then. Oh, right. Sorry, I've just got a. Right. Yeah. Right. Next question. We will have to be quick on these next two. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this one is from Space Cadet again. Have either guests heard of any accounts of a UFO-type metallic ship in the shape of a shark?
No,
that didn't look capable of flight.
I had a report of a silver dolphin, and it was a balloon. Yeah, got reported by somebody, and I saw it passing, and that was a. But it's funny you mention that, because it was something I've recently heard over the last 48 hours of somebody saying that they saw. It was an email I got off somebody, and they said that they saw. They think they saw a UFO, and it was shark. It was like a shark. It was very strange. He said he'd also seen one that looked like a manta as well. So I don't know. But it can come in any shapes or sizes, can it? And seemingly, some of the phenomena can even morph. So,
well, usually whenever the UFOs come around, you get that hum that you tend to hear. But I'd imagine with the shark, it's more like a da-da.
You get the theme tune with it. You never know. I've not seen one, so I've not seen a flying shark, not yet. All right. Next question, and this is the last one. So this is from Adam again, for Barry. The Irish can have quite a different view on the paranormal. Any ideas how these have evolved?
They continually evolve, Adam, and when the to call ourselves Irish is not quite correct, because the island has been invaded many occasions. So we do have quite a mixed bag of DNA on the island. But the people who built the passage chambers, which predate the Great Pyramids of Giza, these stone structures are dotted across the landscape, these doorways to other realms. And when the next generation came to that place, they didn't know what they were. So they were adaptive. They were making changes to suit their own. When the Vikings came, they were making changes as well. We can see that in Scotland, where they add graffiti onto the inside of the chambers.
Yeah.
So we're always inheriting what the land is presenting. And sometimes that there can be problems in the way that we interpret that. But in general, for someone who is druid, a seer, those types of things, if they're good and they're worth their weight in salt, then they can pull that information that may have, in other words, been lost. They're able to pull that forward and apply it to their concept of what is beyond. And that in principle is how it does evolve. into what it is today. You know, the fairy faith is still very, very strong here in Ireland, and for good reason. You know, the phenomena does happen. The UFOs still happen.
Yeah.
Ghosts, poltergeists, all of that still happens. And let's not forget the church's influence, because everything outside of what they deem as demonic. So you don't have to go too far before you find those little cheery fellows darting all over the place. But no, we have a huge influx of information that has made it through into the present day. Many of it has come from Samaria. And because the people who were building the passage chambers, they had Middle Eastern blood. They were coming from the Fertile Crescent. So that particular belief system of what was happening there, the mound builders, they were making their way across Europe, and they came here. And of course, the mound builders are also found in the Americas. And by the way, Steve, I found out what the tunnel system was for in Teotihuacan. We'll speak on that later.
All right.
I thought he was going to tell us now, Matt.
No, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Worth a try. Thank you both so much for coming on tonight. It's been absolutely amazing. Really do appreciate it. So, yeah, and I think by the looks of it, everyone in the chat has loved it. Everyone watching us. So, yeah, really do appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you.
Just got a quick update on what's going on for 12th Dimension over the next few weeks. So there is no live stream this Friday, as I've got prior engagement that I can't get out of, even though I have tried and it's not happening. So next week, I've got 3 streams. On Tuesday, I've got Eric Mintle coming on, ufologist. I don't know if you guys know him or have heard of him. Wednesday, we've got Jessica Jones coming on, the one who does Cryptid Huntress, who does the remote viewing and all that. Thursday, I'm doing a podcast for a guy called Michael Kopf. He's got a new podcast coming out, so he wants me to be a guest on it. And then on Friday, we've got Rob Demarest coming on. As you know, Barry. So we've got 3 next week. And then, so this is the thing that we've been building up to for a couple of months now. I've not really been able to say anything until we've got closer to the time. So, do you guys know of Chris Meek from Scottish Paranormal Podcast?
Yes.
So, me and Chris have been having a chat and doing some working stuff out together. The whole of February, so the 4 Fridays in February, we're doing a 4-part series show, and it's just about the Skinwalker Ranch.
Very good.
So I've got the book there by George Knapp, and I've got 29 episodes to watch, at least. So the first week we're going to be talking about it's a bit weird, but we're going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about. Yes. And the next 3, so the one after that, it's going to be what happened in the first season on Skinwalker Ranch. Second one, second season, third one, third season. So we're going to be doing that.
Very good.
So that's starting in February. And then in March, because I've got the other YouTube channel as well now, I'm going to be doing alternate Fridays. So the other YouTube channel is non-paranormal. Even though there are aspects of supernatural and paranormal stuff going on, I'm going to alternate. So it's going to be 12th Dimension 1 week, Flying Solo the next week, and just alternate it. So, and that's it. That's me going forward for 2023. So,
Sure.
Keep me busy.
Next time when myself and Barry together, will be at our Awakening Expo, which will be taking place at Manchester in August of next year. 3 days in August next year.
Try and get tickets for that.
So we've got that, and we of course we still have Phenomena magazine, which is the monthly magazine, goes out for free. If anybody wants to get hold of that, they can go to phenomenamagazine.co.uk. Barry's got his own website as well, charmstealer.com.
Charmstealer.com. But if folks are interested in the latest book, The Deceptions of Gods and Men, that looks at what's coming through the veil, they can grab that on Amazon. It's available on hard copy, soft copy, Kindle, and also audiobook.
Yeah. Oh, well, I remember as well, I've reopened the Facebook group that you two guys are both members of. I did archive it for a while because it wasn't going anywhere. So I've reopened it to help with the YouTube and everything else and keep everything connected. So if you want to, I would say, if you want to send a link to me, or if you want to stick it in the group for your website, because I'm not sure I've got your link for that. I know I've got Steve's.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've got yours.
Grand stuff, no worries.
Either way, I can put it on there. I can stick it in the group. I'll put it on my own Facebook profile and just go from there.
Okay, great.
So hopefully we'll get you on again and again and again.
Until he finds out what's happening under Teotihuacan.
Yeah.
Once I find that, I'm just going to bing you off. No, but it's been absolutely amazing. Really loved it.
Brilliant.
So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Yeah, thank you both for coming on. I'm going to do the outro, and if you want to stick about for 2 minutes before, let me shoot off. So, yeah, nothing this Friday. And we've got George Mintle on Tuesday. So, thank you, everyone. Thank Steve and Barry, everyone in the chat, everyone for the questions, and everyone else that's viewing it. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. And good night.